When you first arrive in Canada, it can be super exciting, but at the same time also feel a bit challenging. You'll have all these questions like, what about health insurance? What about internet? Where should I live? Before I first arrived in Canada about 4 years ago, I wished that I had a complete checklist of all the things that I needed to do. So guys, in this video today, I want to share with you 6 things that you should get done in the first week of arriving in Canada to make your life as easy as possible. And for each thing, I'm going to tell you what you need to do, why it's important, and the very basic steps for doing it. But before we start, just a general disclaimer, I am not an immigration consultant nor a financial advisor. So anything that I'm going to tell you in this video is purely based on my own experience. So guys, here are 6 things that you should get done in the first week of arriving in Canada, and preferably in this order, and I'll tell you why later. The first thing that you must do once you arrive here at the airport on the first day even is to get a Presto card. So what is a Presto card, you might ask? Presto card is a card that you can use for public transportation in the Greater Toronto area. Here in Canada, taking an Uber or a Lyft can get pretty expensive. You might want to do that on your first or second day, but afterwards in general, unless you have a car, it's really a good idea and a convenient way to use public transportation. And instead of buying a ticket every time you hop on a bus or a subway, it's a much easier way to simply buy this Presto card. So if you're arriving here with your family and you have kids, you might be wondering who needs this Presto card. Everyone needs to pay for public transportation, but kids until the age of 12 can ride for free. So now your next question might be, where do I get this Presto card? It's very easy. In fact, once you arrive at Toronto Pearson Airport, there, just look out for the public transportation area, just follow the signs, and there you will see a fare vending machine, and you can buy this Presto card from this fare vending machine with a deposit of $6. So the $6 is the deposit, and on top of that you top up an amount of money, and I would suggest initially to put anything between $20 to $30 on your card. And if you're curious to know more about public transportation in general here in Toronto, then check out this playlist up here where I talk in much detail about different modes of transportation here in Toronto, what they cost, how to buy tickets, etc. By the way guys, if you found this video useful so far, then I would really appreciate it if you'd hit the like button, because that would tell me that you're interested in this kind of content and that I'll continue to make it. And also guys, make sure that you leave your comments and your questions down below, and I'll do my best to get back to you. The second thing that you should do in the first week of arriving here in Toronto is to get your SIN number, or your social insurance number. So why and what do you need this SIN number for? You will need this SIN number if you want to work. If you get a job, then your employer will ask you for your SIN number. To open a bank account, something we'll talk about later, you actually do not necessarily have to have a SIN number, but for bank accounts that earn you interest, or for investment accounts where there is a potential capital gain, because when you submit your income tax report to the CRA or the Canadian Revenue Agency, then you will need to report your interest earnings, and along with that they will also ask for your SIN number. So what does this SIN number look like? It is not a card, it is just a simple piece of paper. It just looks like a printout, and you can apply for this either online, but I would not recommend this, especially if you do not have a fixed address here yet. And apart from that, things can get lost in the mail and it takes time and so on. So if you're new here in Toronto, I would highly recommend you to just go to a Service Canada location and apply for a SIN number in person. And the benefit of that is also that if you have any outstanding questions, you can ask the officer there on the spot. So there are 2 ways to do this. If you want to go in person, you can just go straight to the location, or you can make an appointment online. But so far, I must tell you, I never made an appointment. I usually just went straight to a Service Canada location. But in that case, you need to be prepared to have around 1 to 2 hours of time, because if there's a longer queue, then you would need to wait for a bit. So if you apply in person, you will get your SIN number on the spot on that day. They will print out that piece of paper with the number on it and hand it out to you. So once you have your SIN number, this piece of paper, guard it very carefully, store it in a safe place, and make sure that no one has access to your number, because if anyone with bad intentions gets hold of your SIN number, they could potentially misuse it and conduct fraud with it. The next question you might have is, what kind of documents do I need to apply for this SIN number? And instead of listing down all the documents, I will link down this website here that you should access and go through the steps that will lead you to a list of documents. By the way, you might also be wondering who needs the SIN number. If you're here as PR, you definitely should get a SIN number because you are eligible to work, and thus you will need the SIN number. The same, of course, applies when you're here on a work permit. You came here to work and thus you need that SIN number. But even if you're here as a student and if you have a study permit, in many cases, check it out on your study permit, by the way, at the bottom section, usually you are permitted to work for a certain number of hours. And even though you're just a student, if you earn any money at the beginning of the next year, you will need to submit an income tax report, and for that you will need a SIN number. By the way, guys, if you're here as a permanent resident, I've made a video earlier which I'll link up here on how you can get your SIN number as PR. Okay guys, the third thing that you should definitely do in your first week of arriving here in Canada is to get a local cell phone plan. And there are 3 important reasons for that. The first reason is that if you come over here but you continue to use your overseas cell phone plan, then chances are that you will be paying a lot in roaming fees. It's just more expensive. Whereas if you get a local cell phone plan, usually you'll get a certain number of free call minutes and free text each month. The second reason is that having a local cell phone number can be very important in your quest to get your first job here or even to get your accommodation. And the reason is very simple. When you're trying to get a new job or you're applying for an apartment, and then the employer or the landlord looks at your phone number and sees that, oh, it seems to not be a Canadian number. It seems that this is a foreign number, so it could be possible that the person is still overseas. So why should I really bother, right? So having and using a local phone number will indicate to a potential employer or landlord that you are actually already in Canada and that you can actually meet them and you're serious about it and you're not just probing or not just researching, right? And the third reason why you should quickly get a local cell phone plan is because by having that and making regular and on-time payments each month, that will actually contribute to your credit history. And guys, if you're planning to settle in Canada and buy a house one day or even just apply for an increase in your credit card limit, then your credit history and your credit score is very important. And your cell phone history, the payments especially, will contribute to a better credit history. Now, your next question might be, which cell phone provider should I go with? There are so many, right? So this is just based on my own experience, but for the last 4 years since I arrived here in Canada, I've used the provider Koodo. Koodo belongs to a larger company called TELUS. And the reason is simply because friends whom we stayed with in the beginning recommended Koodo to us. And so far, I must say that in general, I didn't have any problems with the coverage and the internet. So far, so good. And price-wise, I think they're also competitive. But honestly, you can go for any provider which you think offers the best deal for you. A quick note about costs, because this is something that you might be really curious about. How much does it cost to have a cell phone plan here in Canada? If you already own your own cell phone, then it starts anywhere from $15 and above. But honestly, guys, this is my honest opinion, a $15 cell phone plan doesn't do much for you. If you need a certain amount of data, and if that's at least 4 gigabytes or 6 gigabytes, which is not a lot of data anyway, right? Then you have to be prepared to pay anywhere between $40, $50 to $60 each month. But if you don't own a cell phone, then many companies here offer very great package deals, which include a phone which you can pay in installments, or what is also called having a tab, plus the monthly plan for the call minutes, text, and data. But one tip here, guys, I would advise you not to rush into buying a cell phone too soon, because during Black Friday in November and Boxing Day in December, there are usually a ton of really great offers. And sometimes you can even get a cell phone for $0, and that's something that I'll make a video about later. Your next question might be, okay, where do I get a cell phone plan? And it's very easy. I think as a newcomer here, the easiest thing you can do is just go to the nearest mall. Just go to the nearest mall and apply for a cell phone plan there. The benefit will be that you will have all of the providers side by side and you can compare their offers in real time. The fourth important thing that you should get done in the first week of arriving in Canada is, of course, to open a bank account. And the reason is very simple. Almost all transactions here in Canada are carried out electronically. I mean, in some places like small grocery shops, you still pay with cash, or you might also use some small change if you're using a coin laundry, but usually most people will just use their debit card or their credit card. And apart from that, you want to open a bank account to receive payments when you start your job, or to make payments to other people via Interac or wire transfer, etc. Another reason, of course, is that once you start earning money here in Canada, you definitely want to start saving and even open an investment account perhaps. So one of your questions now might be, which bank do you recommend? Where should I open my bank account? And for this, I must say I do not have a specific recommendation. Most big banks here in Canada like Scotiabank, TD, CIBC, and so on offer what is called a newcomer bank account, and they usually offer things like a welcome gift, special offers, and so on. So definitely look into newcomer bank account. And by the way, guys, I recently made a video on the newcomer bank account offered by Scotiabank, and if you're interested in that, you can check out this link above here. Usually the banks don't just offer checkings and savings accounts for newcomers, but they also offer them credit cards. And considering that they know that newcomers do not have the same kind of credit history and employment history and so on, in some cases they have a special process I think is a bit more lenient, so it makes it kind of easier for you as a newcomer to get your first credit card. Now, how much does it cost to open a bank account? And the answer is, in most cases, to get a plain vanilla bank account, savings account, it doesn't cost you anything. But there are usually monthly fees, and those monthly fees that are usually around anywhere from $10 to $20 per month will be applied if your balance drops below a certain amount. So it differs from bank to bank. At some banks it's $1,000, at some others $2,000 or $3,000. So you need to maintain that amount, and if you don't, if you drop below that, then you will be charged let's say $15 or so service charge, which on an annual basis is quite a lot of money. And in case you're asking, where should I open my bank account, at which branch? It actually doesn't matter at which branch you open your bank account, because even if you open your bank account at branch A, you will still be able to transact at branch B. And the fifth thing that you should do in your first week of arriving in Canada is start searching for accommodation. You might not immediately get it during your first week, but at least you should get the process started. When you first arrive in Canada, at first you might be living with relatives or with friends or even at an Airbnb, but after a while you don't want to stay with them forever, and an Airbnb costs a lot of money, right? So what you want to do is to get your permanent or at least semi-permanent accommodation. So one challenge that many newcomers often face when they first arrive here, and it was a big challenge for us as well, was that we didn't necessarily have all the documents that are typically required when you apply for an accommodation. And that's, by the way, how it works here in Canada. So if you want to rent a place, you have to submit an application with the required documents, and those usually consist of your credit score, your credit history, and employment letter if you're employed, to show that you have a regular, a stable income, and also proof of income like pay stubs and so on. But if you've just arrived here, and especially if you're a student, usually you won't have all of those things. And because of that, and because I've also experienced this problem for myself, I made a video specifically on this, on how you as a newcomer can find your first place to live, and I'll link this video up here for you. Now, where can you find your accommodation? There are many places to look for. You just go online. Some places, for example, are PadMapper, also Facebook, or one suggestion that I would have is just to type in property management companies. Property management companies are companies that usually do not have only one apartment building, but they have several apartment buildings with many units in them, and that will offer you a larger range of choices. And also, based on my experience, usually they are also a bit more lenient with the process. The sixth thing that you should get done once you arrive here in Canada is to get your health insurance in order. I bet that before arriving in Canada, you have at least signed up for a travel insurance. And if you haven't, if you're still overseas and you're not in Canada yet, I would strongly advise this. Because guys, you never know what happens on the way. Of course, we hope for the best, but it's always better to have this travel insurance insurance, at least you're covered for the first weeks. But once you arrive in Canada, you want to have a local health insurance. So there are a few different cases. If you are PR, permanent residence, with your whole family, then you are eligible to get OHIP, or the Ontario Health Insurance Plan. And it is very, very easy to apply for OHIP, and I've also made a video on OHIP as well as other videos about health insurance, and I will link the playlist to that up here, and you can check that out after finishing watching this video. So OHIP is not that great, but it's not that bad either, but I think I could make another video dedicated to that. But at least what it will do is to give you the very basic coverage you need in case you need medical services, and that can give you a peace of mind. So let's talk about the other cases. What if you're here on a study permit? If you're here on a study permit, usually your institution will require you to sign up for health insurance. And usually the institution will work together with a health insurance company and offer you a health insurance package for students at a discounted price. But don't just accept it at face value. I would really recommend you to read through the details and read through what is covered exactly. And then depending on your particular health situation, you might want to add an additional private insurance on top of that, and there are many here in Canada. For example, Cigna, Empire Life Insurance, Blue Cross, and so on. If you're here on a work permit and you have a full-time permanent job, then usually one of your benefits will include health insurance. And same in that case, make sure that you read through the details and check out what is covered and what is not. And in most cases, your employer will give you the possibility to opt in for additional health insurance coverage, in which case you would usually need to pay an additional amount of money. By the way, guys, if you're arriving here in Canada in the fall, then you must know that winter is coming, and winter here in Canada is really harsh. And in case you're wondering what you need to prepare in terms of winter clothing, and so then you can also check out this video over here in which I explain about the 9 essential items that you must have if you're planning to live in Toronto, Canada. Thank you so much for watching, guys. Have an awesome day, and I'll see you again next time.